Oh, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 595 of FloWrestling Radio Live. I'm your host, Christian Piles, joined in person by Ben Funky Askren and a very special guest today. I hear the music, Josh, if we can cut that off.
Cut the music.
We're running it back. Special guest Saturday edition. We got David Taylor here, the Magic Man, hopping on. DT, let's check in. How you doing, bud? We're great, man. We're excited for the afternoon. It's been a crazy day, a couple days here at Flow. I'm sure even crazier for you with your news and the match getting pushed back and rescheduled. And is it going to get rescheduled? So I guess first off, just are you feeling good? Everything's good to go on your end from a health perspective. I guess that's priority one.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I feel great. I mean, unfortunately, just with the world we live in, contact tracing is, I don't know. I mean, it's really kind of treated as a positive test, with a lot of rules and how you can travel and everything that goes into it. So, I mean, doing all the precautions that we can do, and I've had multiple negative tests this week, no symptoms. So as of right now, we're ready to rock and roll on Wednesday.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I guess, what was that couple day stretch like where it was like not only are you not wrestling Saturday, but maybe this match isn't going to happen? How tough was that?
Yeah, it's terrible. I mean, it's literally heartbroken. Like I remember seeing this time when Daniel Cormier was going to fight John Jones, and they told Daniel Cormier like the news that wasn't going to happen. He like broke down in tears, and I remember like seeing that on like a embedded or something for a fight, and that's how I felt. So much energy, time, effort, preparation on so many parties has gone into making this match happen, a gigantic match. And in the last minute, potentially like, man, hey, this event might not happen now, is devastating, and especially for, for my family and I, because I mean, I try and treat myself as a professional in as many ways as I possibly can. And that included, hey, for my wife and I, we made a decision. We don't want to do anything that could potentially jeopardize this match. For the holidays, we stayed home, just my wife, my daughter, and myself, and that was it. We haven't been around other people. Whether your beliefs on COVID, however you believe on it, it doesn't matter. Like, you don't want to jeopardize, the opportunity to go compete at a high level and when you're with other people as well. So, I mean, we're talking about weeks, multiple weeks of just kind of really being self-isolated and competing and training with people that also have negative tests. And, obviously in the last minute to be contact traced was really tough. But, we've all been working together and doing the best we possibly can to safely travel, compete, and fulfill, obviously, this opportunity. So that's where we are right now.
I was thinking, obviously, I was kind of on the inside, but not totally. And as Thursday was going on and you guys were going back and forth and trying to get this thing rescheduled, I know I texted Christian. I said I felt for a while it may not happen, and then for me that was sad because it's not like you guys are the same weight class, and we're just gonna get to see it 2 months from now, right? It's like, shoot, if this doesn't happen, it might not happen. Did you ever have that feeling like it wasn't gonna happen, or was the whole time it was like, yeah, let's just figure out how we're gonna get this on the calendar?
Yeah, I think my first, my first kind of feeling was this isn't gonna happen.
Yeah.
Just so many moving parts, and that was tough. It was tough. It's tough in a lot of ways, and again, but luckily everything is still been moving forward. There's been people are contacting me and asking what's going on. I'm like, man, it's changing by the minute. Just trying to do everything we can to be flexible. Obviously, the event is moved from Austin to Lincoln. Obviously, I wouldn't really prefer to be wrestling in Lincoln. I would rather be wrestling in Austin, where you guys' headquarters are, and you've had so much established chemistry in making this event happen. But if that's what has to happen for the event to happen, I'm flexible. And that's kind of been it from the beginning is what do we got to do to make this happen? What do we got to do? And understanding that there's multiple parties. You have Jordan, you have myself, as well as you guys in putting on the event. And that just seemed to be the path of least resistance to make it happen. And I got to travel one way or the other. And hopefully everything stays on track and Wednesday's the go day.
Yeah. How have you been feeling training wise up to this point? Obviously, Jordan presents. I mean, you wrestled Gabe Dean not that long ago, but Gabe Dean and Jordan Burroughs, like stylistically, couldn't probably be much more different. How has your preparation been the last couple weeks or so?
It's been really good. I think, in looking back of when this started, the back and forth of this event, I think it was, even for me, from a personal perspective, 2018 World Championships was the last time it was like, hey, we're peaking for this event. It's the biggest event in the world. You have the opportunity to be a world champion. It's something just like that. The excitement of a competitor going into that event is heightened. It's like, man, this is the real deal. I've been training for this my entire life. This is, I'm peaked and I'm the absolute best, in the best shape that I possibly could be in. So I think, I think that this is really the first time I've been able to feel that again. And I think that was the idea of wrestling, Jordan and I both is, hey, there's not a world championships. This is an event that clearly we're both going to be. I have all these stupid alerts rolling through my phone right now. I got, this is an event that we're both clearly going to take really serious in our preparation. We're going to treat it as a world championships. This is a match it's as tough for both of us as any match that we could line up in the entire world. And we're going to treat it as such. So I think my training has been leading up to it as I would if I was in an event like that. I feel the same. I feel that same like excitement to step on the mat and put forth. Obviously I'm going to need my best performance when I step out there. And I feel really confident that I can put my best performance out there. So whether it was going to be tomorrow, I guess today, Saturday, or if it's going to be delayed a couple of days, I feel great.
Nice. So let's go back to the Gabe Dean match. Christian brought it up, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but prior to that, when I think about your Pan Ams or World Championships, there wasn't a match that was that close that late. You had kind of widened the gap on everyone. I don't even recall when the last one is. Maybe the 2017 trials or something like that. Is it good to have felt that, knowing that? I mean, I told Christian I can't see one way or the other where David versus Jordan's a blowout. I think it's going to be really competitive down to the end of the match. Was it good to have felt that again? Because I know, as a competitor, it's different when you're blowing someone out versus when it's down to the wire.
Definitely. I mean, Gabe is really tough. Obviously
Mm-hmm.
there's no one can debate that. And I think stylistically, he presented a style that was similar to maybe the Cuban that I've wrestled a couple of times, Torreblanca, who I've had a battle, and scored tough points on. And that's probably, in preparing for that match and thinking about common opponents, that's probably been the one. And Torreblanca has probably been a guy that's gave me my most competitive matches, over the
Mm-hmm.
last couple of years. I wouldn't say competitive matches, but matches like that were low scoring. Um, Also, I think just a couple other factors is, I hadn't competed, in a while. I hadn't competed since I wrestled Miles Martin. And that was the peak drama of this match with Jordan, was right before that match. It was, the match was locked up and ready to go before he wrestled Zahid. After the Zahid match, Jordan kind of, it wasn't locked up anymore. So it was, the idea was we both were going to wrestle. It was locked up. He was wrestling Valencia. I was going to wrestle Gabe Dean, and then we were going to wrestle. And then it got kind of delayed. There was some Dutch drama. So that was on my mind heavily. And it was hard to separate the two. You have this like giant, this guy you're wrestling, but you have this warrior and this beast that's standing in the way. It's like, I got to be prepared. So it was a good learning experience for me, especially if with these one-off matches, they're not tournaments, Ben, you could
Mm-hmm.
probably
Yeah.
attest to this, when you're doing a fight and you maybe have a big fight lined up down the road, but you have a really tough fight you got to get ready for, that's not something in wrestling we usually do. So, yeah, that was tough, and Gabe obviously had just wrestled the U.S. Nationals, just prepared for the 8-man tournament. So he was pretty much in his peak and in his prime, and I was kind of in the infancy of my training to get ready to wrestle Jordan, which had been planned for later in December. So that match was tough. I mean, that was one of the toughest dogfights I've been in a while, and it felt good to feel that, and definitely I could kind of take back from that some things I needed to work on to continue to be prepared. But that's why you compete. It's not always going to be pretty. It's not always going to be great. I think those are matches in my past that, I've kind of talked about before, where sometimes I used to find ways to lose rather than find ways to win. That was a match
Mm-hmm.
I definitely had to dig down and find a way to make it happen, even though I didn't feel my greatest, and got the job done. Now I was able to prepare, and definitely, like I said, I feel really prepared, ready for this match.
A lot of talk coming into this match has centered around pace. Both of you have won matches with a variety of things, but your pace comes up a lot. You wrestle maybe the hardest pace in the world. Maybe Jordan does. Who knows? But both of you guys use it as a weapon. Like Jordan's a little different. Is that like when he has this like sprint that he can just go into and it's like a guaranteed point, whereas you it's just this constant pressure. Have you thought about like, am I going to be able to make pace a factor here, or do you think that's necessary for you to beat Jordan?
I think it's always something that's in my favor. I mean, I think in going to this match, I think, obviously everyone thinks about it. We're going into it, so I've thought about different scenarios and how the match could potentially play out. I think, just based on our history of when we wrestled, whether it was 6 years ago, or it's been in training camp, however it may be. I mean, it's typically back and forth, and I think the difference in when I wrestle in training camp and when I wrestle in real competition is in training camp, winning and losing isn't my priority. When at that point, it's pushing myself so I can put my best performance forward when I compete. I've talked about that. I make tons of mistakes in practice. I get scored on a lot in practice. I don't get scored on nearly as much in competition. So, in going to this match, yeah, I think I'm going to wrestle at a pace that I feel benefits me, but also that's going to put myself in the best situation to be successful. And in doing so, yeah, I'm going to push the pace. I'm going to look to score frequently and a lot and create scrambles and create opportunities as I would anyone else in the world. And obviously wrestling Jordan, he has a skill set that, obviously it's something that benefits him as well. But the difference is when he gives up points, he kind of always can rely on that. I can always come back. And with me, I guess I have something similar as well, where I could give up points. I feel like I can always come back. So I think, like you said, it's something that it's a skill set that we both possess. And it's interesting that going into a match, you'll really be able to challenge that from both perspectives.
Yeah, so I see the same thing. I mean, my take is that pace is not going to be a huge factor because you guys are both so good at it. But when you watched the Zahid match, which was a couple months ago, Jordan gave up those early scores, and obviously we know Zahid's explosive, but he was really reliant on his pace, and he really slowed Zahid down as the second period went on. So is attacking at the beginning and scoring points, because I can't imagine you think you're going to wilt the same way that Zahid did. Is that a point of emphasis for you?
To not wilt?
No. Opposite. To score, or to make sure you score early. Because to me, in the Zahid match, it looked like Jordan, like you said, was like, okay, I can give these points up because I know I'm going to be able to put a pace on him and come back in the second. Whereas, against you, I don't think pace is going to be a factor for either party.
Well, I think that, one way or the other, that, as we get later in that match, what happens in the first 3 minutes, I don't think is going to be as much of an outcome of what happens in the last 3 minutes. I think, like I said, but I do believe that I think we're both going to have a little heightened sense of scores that maybe, that we're going to fight and not want to give up, knowing that the other guy is in great shape, and that I think scoring is going to be difficult. Those opportunities to score, you got to make the most of them. And that's just when you have a match of this high level. I mean, there's no easy point scored. I mean, that's one thing that Jordan does really well, is he doesn't give up easy points, and typically if a guy gets them, he can kind of relax or not really relax, he knows he can come back and get them. With me, I don't think he's going to feel that way. So he's going to definitely really be disciplined, I believe, in what he's doing and not want to give those easy points. Same with me. I don't want to give up easy points, knowing that, hey, this guy obviously is very, very tough in the second period as well. So not that either one of us give up easy points. I just think that those points are those points are obviously, I wouldn't say they're going to be harder to come by, because I think that we'll both score, but they're going to mean a little bit more. And I believe that with Valencia, he felt like he had to come out hard early, because I don't think he has a lot of confidence late in matches. So I think he needed to get up early. And it just happened. I think he got up early, and when Jordan started coming, it was a lot. But obviously not taking too much into that, because Zed hasn't practiced or probably hasn't competed a lot since his suspension. Obviously that was his first one back in in almost a year. So I wouldn't read too much into what happened there. But I think there's enough data of how Jordan and I wrestle that you can probably come to some pretty good assumptions of what the how the pace and the scoring is going to happen throughout the match.
Thinking about, so much, it's kind of funny to how much the conversation turns to the 2014 saga with you guys with the Open and World Team Trials, and much has been discussed about like the changes in both your wrestling, right? Like obviously, not only have you grown, but you've gotten way better from that point, and Jordan has evolved as well. What do you see as maybe the two biggest differences in, or as the biggest differences for each of you guys from 2014 to now?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'd say probably the biggest difference for me is just the complete match. I kind of talked pretty openly about that with my interview with Mike Mao. Is at that point in time, like how many times had I been challenged for a full match? And doing so, the weight cut that I used to have to put forth, my diet, my nutrition, all those things, and I think ultimately played into a factor later in those matches. So, I've been in deep waters, and I like to pull my partners into deep waters now, and understanding what that feels like. I think that's where Jordan had so much of a advantage at that point in time, was he knew how to go to deep waters and swim, and I think now that's one thing he knows. He's mentioned it. He knows in the back of his mind that that's maybe something that he had to advantage then, and he doesn't have an advantage anymore. Um, and then you just take a fact of just growth of both competitors. Just uh, he's been competitive on a high level for an extremely long time, so he knows what it takes to win. And that's why a match of this magnitude is exciting as a competitor, because you're truly wrestling one of the all-time greatest of all time, and to be able to go challenge yourself against someone of that caliber is a good opportunity.
What do you see tactically? I think a priority for anyone wrestling you is not letting you set your collar tie and go to work pulling on their head, because you're just so dangerous from that position. What do you see Jordan doing to mitigate that position?
I think it's just what Jordan does really well. I think he is going to want to use the edge. I mean, he's great on the edge defensively and offensively. I mean, he in some of his matches that are really close and tough, I mean, edge wrestling has been an outcome there. Whether he can not get pushed out, turn around, make it in his takedown. I mean, even back when we wrestled, there was a couple instances where he was able to kind of use that. And I think just he says he's a hand fighter, but I just don't think that's something that he's going to want to do with me. I think he's going to create space um, and utilize that to his advantage, I guess. But that's what everyone does to me. Everyone is blocking and posting and trying to back up, and that's just I've learned to wrestle through that. We practice it all the time in practice, and but again, not many people are as good as Jordan, so I'm excited to obviously go out and challenge myself against a guy with those tactics.
Yeah, I mean, you speak about keeping space, which he is better than anyone at that. Is there someone you can identify in practice that you can have mimic him? Because obviously, he's probably one of the best at it of all time, maybe. So how do you get a feel for that? Who's your Jordan Burroughs in practice?
Right. I mean, because he's a unique combination of
Yes.
speed, strength, and just determination. So
Hmm.
I think the guy for me that's probably the closest to that is Jason Knopf, just because of his athletic ability, speed, strength, determination. Not wanting to give up scores, athleticism. He's probably been the best to feel and understand kind of
Hmm.
what that's feel like, and just like you know, you can't replicate Jordan, and you can't
Yeah.
replicate me. You can definitely do your best to try and figure those things out. You can have a plan or whatever you think you're going to have going the match, but you got two people that you can try and figure out as much as possible. But once you get in there, uh, you're just going to do what you feel most comfortable doing. Um, so we'll see. I mean, I feel pretty ready and pretty prepared to definitely step out there, and I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Competition wise, having never been good at this sport, when you have a date that you're keyed in on Saturday, it gets pushed back 4 or 5 days. Is that a factor? No factor. I know it's at scratch 86. Is that a factor at all?
I mean, I've worked really hard, just to have my weight under control. Obviously, going to this match, I haven't made weight, really in 2 years. I've made weight in 2018 scratch. I made weight 2019 Pan Am, 2020 Pan Ams, 2019 Pan Ams, 2020 Pan Ams. So obviously, but my weight is not an issue. I'm basically been down to weight for a couple of weeks, just a matter of making weight. So now it's just a couple of days postponement. Really just I was ready to go. It's peaked, so it's just a matter of a couple more days. It doesn't really change much. Consulting with my coaches, and again, that doesn't really change my preparation level by any means.
Obviously, you were a 74. You bumped up to 86. It's been discussed the work you've had to do to become an 86 kilogram guy. How much of a cut is that for you at this point?
I mean, as time's gone on, like early on, it was not much, and at the time, early on, a lot of it was 2 kilos a day before weigh-in, so it was literally nothing. As my body has continued to evolve and just grow, it's gotten a little more challenging. But I wouldn't say it's a challenge as much as it just takes a little bit of effort and a little bit of work. But um, I think for most people that have put in a little bit of effort into their weight, typically you feel better rather than just kind of weighing in and just showing up and not having to really worry about it as much. So it's been I like it. I like having to stay disciplined, and it just helps I think in every aspect as a competitor. But I think about the weight issue. I think it's something that is being discussed constantly about how people talk about how well you left Jordan's weight at 74 kilos. I mean, if you look at the two of us, I'm not a 74 kilo. I really wasn't even a 74 kilo then. I was really a 79 kilo. I just was literally stuck in
Mm-hmm.
between weight
Mm-hmm.
classes of where I need to go. And 86 kilos is just the weight class for me. It wasn't, hey, I left because Jordan was in that weight class. I mean, that's just kind of silly because I literally I couldn't make the weight. Had a really difficult time making the weight, and just making the decision that 86 kilos was the best decision for me as a competitor, not because I was leaving a weight because of someone else. So I think that's definitely something that people talk about all the time, and I can understand where they get that from. But clearly, 86 kilos has become the best weight class for me and my long term opportunities as a wrestler to be at my best weight class.
So you were a 65 your last 3 years of college. When did that start to get really tough? Obviously, your senior year, it must have been pretty difficult.
All 3 years.
Really?
It wasn't. It really wasn't an easy. 57 was a little challenging, but I was still so young and as a kid. My whole college career, I mean, I hadn't even matured. I didn't even grow facial hair. I
Hmm.
mean, I was just such a little baby. At the time. I really didn't. Most guys are physically mature. Much younger in their careers, and I wasn't. I matured really late. I matured late in high school, and that kind of was the whole way, all the way through college. Everyone called me the baby face for so long.
Mm-hmm.
So I just didn't. My dad didn't really mature till he was like 28 years old, and that's kind of the same, really kind of same thing for me. But during that time, as my body was growing, I just was resisting it, and it was just challenging. It was a really good weight class for our team. Definitely made our team, Penn State Wrestling, the best. Obviously we won 4 national championships during that time. At 65 or 165 pounds was the best one, and also I also believed 165 was the best weight for me as well. I kind of got to that point where I'd been cutting weight, and I felt like going up in weight class would have been difficult to adjust to. I kind of talked about some of the back and neck issues that I was kind of developing during that time. So. Uh, but I mean, you can't change what you did then, but I can definitely use those experiences of man that significant amount of weight cutting. And not that it was like a weight. I wasn't necessarily like the weight cut on a week to week basis. It was just I was just constantly holding my weight down. And if I back then,
Mm-hmm.
if I would just let my body grow, I would have made this transition 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago. But I just kept holding it, constantly. People were like, man, you got to really consider going up weight class. And I just felt at the time that I wasn't going to be able to. I just didn't foresee people that knew a lot more. If I could go back and say, man, look at your body, look at how it can grow. Uh, I maybe would have realized that earlier. People much smarter than me were telling me that, but I was resistant to it.
Well, so I
Once I
mean,
realized, hey, then this is.
was the lack of 79 kilograms also a consideration there? Because obviously, I'm sure even as a college athlete, you were looking past it. Okay, I want to go make world teams and or Olympic teams. And to your point, the 74 to 86 gap it's gigantic. I mean, that's 22 pounds. It's no more, 24
26.
pounds.
26.
20. Oh my gosh, 26 pounds. My math is terrible. So if the 79 kilogram had been available, do you think that's something you would have considered moving up to 174? Because then you also have an equivalent freestyle weight class to go into and then compete in the world championships after that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, again, I, the team aspect was super important to me. Being on a successful team and what would make our team the best. That was always an important aspect to me. So I felt like I had a kind of a duty and obligation to do my best that we could put together our best lineup. So it's not always looking back, hey, yeah, I would just go up. But yeah, I mean, I think from a practical standpoint, if at the time 174 was a freestyle weight class, yeah, I probably would have. I would be like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, this would make sense, and then I would just work my way up in 86 kilos. I just, at 163 weight class just seemed like this was. I keep say at 165, and it'll keep me within striking range of 163. And my best performances were usually right after the NCAA tournament, the U.S. Opens, because I
Yeah.
kept my weight down all year. I've been making weight so frequently. I usually have my weight so under control by the NCAA tournament that, I was only weighing like 167, 168 pounds. It was just like what I was doing to try and keep my weight down to that was difficult on my body for sure. And then so the U.S. Open was usually my best performance. And by the time we got to the trials, as my body kind of grew again, it was really difficult to get down and perform at the level I wanted to perform at. And after doing that for a couple years, it just didn't make any sense anymore. So I look back. I mean, I don't regret going up one bit. It was the best decision I possibly could make. Grew into my body. Now I'm a full size. Obviously the best. In my mind, the best 86 kilogram guy in the world. So again, just looking forward to putting it back on the line in a couple of days.
Yeah, we can't wait for it. Talked a little bit about Penn State. They've had Coach Kale's had 2 4-peats. You were part of the first one, and it looks like they're loading up again. They're geared up for another run potentially. What have you seen, or I don't even know the deal right now. Like, are you able to train around those guys at all? But what have you seen from this new young crop of Nittany Lions?
They're really good. I mean, it is insane. They're just really good. I think just being around here for as long, I mean, I've been here since the beginning and kind of seeing the recruits that have come through and how they've developed. And these kids are, I mean, they're as good, I think, at this point in time as anyone that we've had in our lineup over the last 10, 11 years. So uh, just seeing them continue to develop and grow. And, just I hope that, obviously a lot of their opportunities were taken from them last year because of COVID. I hope that they have the opportunities to compete this year and really showcase their talent and skill. They work hard. They got great heads on their shoulders, and they're extremely talented. So I'm definitely excited to watch them go out and wrestle.
Awesome. What do you? We talk a lot on FRL about Carter Staraki.
Big,
What have
big
you seen
fan.
from him? We're pretty big fans.
You should be. Carter is unbelievable. Honestly, his future is really, really bright. And just I think if you look at some of his matches that he's had over the last couple of months that he's wrestled, I mean, guys that have had close matches with good people for a long time, Carter's killing them. And I think he just has this relentless, fearless mentality. He loves training and working out. He's a sponge. I mean, he does something once and he figures it out. He feels it one time, he figures it out. Those are unique things that not everybody has. Actually, very few people have that. And he has that. So, I mean, a 174-pound college weight class better be on notice because he's coming like a freight train.
Awesome. Well, we're looking forward to watching Big Ten wrestling. It kicked off yesterday. It started, and obviously everyone will be in gear as of next week. I think Penn State opens on the 15th or 16th, so we can't wait for that. We also can't wait for this evening's events. I guess obviously you were supposed to be on it, but just your thoughts on the remaining 10 matches on this card.
Yeah, it's good. I'm excited for it. I mean, these cards just keep getting better and better and better. I think yeah, each card that has been put on, guys are just more prepared. They've had more time to get back to training. We've wrestled before multiple times, so they've kind of got back into that routine. I think okay, I mean, it really is what it is. The people that didn't do anything during COVID and took it as a break, they're going to be behind. They're going to have a hard time catching up. The guys that
Mm-hmm.
trained during that COVID time, however they could, whether it was just in the garage, Like I made a gym in my garage, and I was training in my garage even when I wasn't wrestling. So at least I had my cardiovascular shape. I was used to pushing my muscles. So when it got back to getting into training, I didn't feel like I missed that much. And some guys didn't do a lot, and they were a little behind playing catch up. But at this point, most people have caught back up. And I think that you've seen that. I think the level of competition has increased each time. So I'm excited for tonight. I mean, there's a lot of really talented individuals, obviously, that are probably as prepared as they've been to this point. Obviously, we're getting pretty close to the Olympic trial. So this is some people's kind of run through. Probably before that, there's not a lot of competitions and tournaments between now and then, unless there's some more cards put on. So I think, long story short, I would expect to see the best wrestling that we've seen so far.
Yeah. Thinking about, kind of wrestling's kind of gone through a real shift and kind of evolved really with these cards. We're seeing them all over the place now. And it's been as a kind of a supplement for competition for you guys, because the USA calendar kind of got messed up and no Olympic trials, etc. So right now it's really servicing a need, but eventually everything is going to come back to normal. But I mean, we at Flow are really hoping that these are going to continue and that's something that's going to continue to grow. How good is it, in your opinion, that something like this gets established and is something that's going to kind of continue throughout wrestling?
There's been so much talk and emphasis on leagues and events and stuff. And I think that, right now is a unique opportunity to people to kind of understand how to show your value in the wrestling community. Whether it's your program doing another program, whether it's these from an individual standpoint, like what kind of numbers can you draw to kind of really determine your value. It's not just as much, yeah, well, we think we're worth this much to the Big Ten, or we think we're worth this much to Flow Wrestling, or however it may be. Well, you can kind of put some statistics and data behind that now with these cards. So I think that's good for wrestling as a niche sport. I also think that it's good for frequency of competition. It's good to have multiple platforms that are giving wrestlers the opportunity as much from every wrestler. We've seen them with elementary, middle
Right.
school, high school, college, and professional, which is awesome. And I think we're getting close where we could have. I mean, there's different things you got to kind of take into effect, but we could have a card with everything on one time, and we think there might have been one of them already. I can't remember off the top of my head, which is pretty cool. So I think wrestling, just is in a really good spot from top to bottom. I think in terms of influencers, obviously providing opportunities. And I would say a hope, but I don't think I really need to say a hope, because I just think that they're going to continue. I just think
Yeah.
that more and more opportunities are going to be presented, for people to. And what's really cool about these matches is you're getting like opponents, no matter where your skill level is. And I think that is important. And you can, again, you wrestle like opponents. One guy wins, one guy loses, one girl wins, one girl loses, and you can kind of set up another match down the road. And I think that as that becomes more of a frequency in our sport, it can kind of just become as the normal moving forward. So it's pretty cool and pretty exciting to be a part of that.
Hey, let me ask you this then. On kind of on that note, I wrestled internationally for roughly 14 months, and I always felt like if I continued, I wanted a deeper schedule. I wanted to get 30 matches. A lot of people say the college season is a grind and it's too many. I always enjoyed competing that much. And I always felt it was a really important part to me getting better was actually stepping on the mat, competing, and then being able to evaluate afterwards and make adjustments. So when we're thinking about these pro cards and schedule, I always think because previously I've tried to do them and failed, and people said well, I can't fit it into my schedule, or I'm only doing X amount of matches. So from a competitive standpoint, not making money or anything, but from a competitive standpoint, what do you think is the right amount of matches for an international wrestler? And does it change from obviously when you're 22 and you graduate college to now you're a little older? Does that change for you, or are you kind of thinking about it the same way the entire time?
It's a good question, and I think it changes. I think that there's a point in your career that you need to go out and go on the grind. Win or lose, like you said, you need 26 to 30 international matches a year,
Mm-hmm.
just to go through the travel, the adjustment to travel, the wrestling, the different competition. And a lot of it is just, wrestling domestic competition, wrestling foreign competition are way different because we have a domestic style and there's clearly an international style, and you got to learn how to beat both styles. You have to be able to make the team, and you have to be able to consistently beat 4 or 5 of those guys overseas. And it's a different feel. It's a different conditioning level. It's a different emphasis on scoring and understanding when to score, when not to score. So those matches are so valuable. And I think, in doing so, you are, as an athlete, you are pulled in a lot of different directions, with your RTC, with your own competition schedule, with the national team, and then obviously working backwards from a world championship and a world team trials or Olympic and Olympic trials as well. So there's different kind of things, but I believe that now, everyone has maybe something that they feel sets them up best to perform. Obviously, I think you gotta really peak twice. You gotta peak for your trials process. You gotta peak for the biggest, if it's the Worlds or Olympics, and then you gotta work backwards on where you feel like. So as you get a little probably older in your career and you've had those matches and that success, probably less competitions. Obviously early on, as younger guys, I urge younger guys out of college constantly, you got to go get on the grind. You got to go to those matches in, because I think they're, even from my own perspective, they were super valuable for me. But now that we have more cards available, you're getting that kind of frequency of competitions. And I think that's where the lull is after you get out of college. Is in college, you're used to just the routine of weigh in, wrestle Friday in the Big Ten, Friday, Sunday, boom, 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 boom. You just, it's just there. When you're done, you have to learn how to do it yourself. You got to look at your schedule. You got to plan your events. And you got to be able to kind of assess it as you go. Be willing to ask for help, and that's a tough thing. But now these competitions coming up, it kind of can put you back into that collegiate mindset. So with these young athletes coming out of their college programs, can kind of just fulfill right into that, and continue to wrestle as they're preparing, which I think would be pretty cool.
Yeah, and another thing that Ben and I talk about often is like, these guys, and you alluded to it, how much you compete when you're a D1 wrestler versus how rarely we get to watch guys at the senior level. And like, in America, the collegiate style is more popular than the senior level, and we think a big part of that is, one, that there's a university draw there, but two, just like I can watch, Nick Lee, 10, 15 times this year, right? Whereas if I want to watch David or some senior level guy, well, one, I'm going to have to wake up at like 2 a.m. because you're wrestling. Half of your competitions are going to be overseas or whatever, and then a handful of domestic ones. Whereas now, as these cars become more of a fixture, I feel like that can help solve that problem of increasing the popularity of senior level, because everyone knows it is by far the superior style. It's the pinnacle of the sport. But right now,
hold on. David loves folk style too.
I know. I love folk style, but there's no question that freestyle is those are the best wrestlers in the world at the senior level.
Well, I don't know the best wrestlers, maybe not the best style. It's
okay.
Up for
I'm not
debate.
saying it's the best style. I'm saying they're the best wrestlers in the world.
What's your favorite style, David? Do you hate folk style now?
I just don't wrestle folk style anymore. The only time I wrestle folk style is when I'm teaching in my club, and I got to sometimes look back and be like, wait, what is the rule here? I got to remember what it is. I'll be saying something like, David, that's not a rule anymore. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, well, you know what? Just don't do it anyways. Just don't do it. But I miss folk style. I miss mat wrestling. I mean, I think what freestyle taught me really, really, I had to learn. That's part of my developmental process, and making that transition is, I used to I was a flippity floppity guy. I could like roll underneath, and I was a good scrambler. I could figure out how I could take it down. Freestyle, that doesn't translate to freestyle at all. You're gonna give up easy points. You go fours, and that's a really hard habit to break. I'm sure, Ben, you can relate to. Now, I still have elements of that I've been able to kind of translate, and I think that's where freestyle is a good learning process. But I really miss mat wrestling on folk style. It was definitely an opportunity to score a lot of easy points. And I definitely miss that. So, I mean, I think that our folk style is adopting more freestyle rules. I think we need to push out rule and folk style. I think it eliminates so much. I think get rid of stalling. Stalling is so subjective. I hate the stalling calls. Just make it a push out on your feet. We have to figure out something, from the mat. But I don't think there's as much stalling on the mat. I mean, guys are either riding. I mean, I think, we'll get into this a little bit, but I feel like to earn a riding point, you have to turn somebody. I don't think it should be called a riding point anymore. So you could ride someone for 2 minutes if you want to, but you shouldn't be rewarded for it unless you turn somebody. So it's a turning point. You turn somebody, you can get your additional point. And then on your feet, it should be a push-out rule. No stalling calls anymore. So if you want to play the edge and get pushed out of bounds, you give a point. And I feel like that will really translate us into freestyle a little bit faster. College wrestling is huge. It's like really as athletes, it's where you build your brand. That's where you build who you are, your reputation, and that translates obviously when you're done with college with your opportunities that you're going to have. And then from a brand perspective, obviously guys or girls that compete frequently, they're more brand friendly. So I feel like if you can continue to work on those folk style rules to adopt a little bit closer to freestyle, I think we're going to have more success at a younger age. I think now with these cards, people can compete a lot more. And ultimately, as you build your brand, you're going to have more opportunities to represent your brand in these events. And I just feel like that can create a really good economy in the sport of wrestling.
Yeah. How's you mentioned your coach in your club, the M2 Training Center. How's that going? Are we going to ever see an Askren Wrestling Academy versus M2 Training Center duel?
We should do it.
Yeah, definitely. We got to do it. Ben and I talked about it a little bit. And I think it'll be a lot of fun. Club's going really well. We have a lot of hungry athletes that want to compete so bad this year. Right now, the PIA we're kind of on hold on events, but right now it's got this like crazy system where only 8 people make the state tournament. Obviously from the central area where most of our kids are, it's the central, the Whippeal, and the Harrisburg schools. I think only 4 people make it out of there to the state tournament, and AAA. And in AA, it's essentially the same region. So, I mean, basically, for our kids that make it to the state tournament, they're already guaranteed top 8 in the state. So it's a one-day tournament. But you're really proven that you're probably going to be one of the best because of where you have to go through to get there. So, we have a good group, really prepared. I mean, this is our 4th year with the club. A lot of these kids have been with us since day one that are really kind of being able to implement the system and mindset required, I think, to really be successful. So it's exciting to see the growth of these kids. We have a great coaching staff, and like I said, they're just hungry to compete. They've been beating up each other for a long time. They're just looking forward to get some other competitions.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, we're looking forward to Wednesday. Certainly, I'm really glad we were able to do this today, David. Don't want to take up too much of your or Ben's time, but do you have anything else you want to discuss before we let you go?
I mean, I just think that I'm excited for this match. Really excited for this match. In my career, I've wrestled a lot of big matches. I think in high school I bumped to weight class, wrestled Colin Palmer. That was kind of like early on in Flo's days,
epic.
But it was a
That
huge match,
was so freaking awesome.
Don't even start comparing Colin Palmer versus David Taylor in
Dude,
high school to what's going on right now.
Listen,
stop. Just stop.
No,
Stop
at the
yourself.
time that was
Stop
that was
yourself.
insane.
That's a high school match. We're talking about world champions here.
Listen, I know that. Just indulge me. It was a huge. At the time, that didn't happen in high school.
Oh, man.
It's like, just keep your number 1 ranking. Colin, keep your number 1 ranking. It's all good. The guys weren't bumping up and doing that
We're
kind
talking
of
about
thing.
world champions here.
I know. He brought it
it's
up.
a path, though, right?
Yeah.
It's a path. I'm just saying, like, I think at an early age, I always was never afraid to wrestle the best guys. I was always trying to wrestle the best competition. All through my career, that was kind of the first really big match that guys did that. And I think obviously in college, again, Kyle and Dake and I were different weight classes, and we found a way to meet at 165, had a gigantic match. I think that these have all kind of set precedent to really where we are now. I've wrestled in huge matches my entire life. And this is obviously the biggest scale, just because of, where we have been in our careers, our presence in the wrestling community. And listen, I'm super excited, super grateful to have the opportunity to wrestle a guy of this caliber. And, as a competitor, you want to wrestle people that are the best. Jordan's the best. So I'm really looking forward to stepping on the line and doing what I've been doing for a long time, competing against the best guys. And I got some history to rewrite for sure. And I'm looking forward to that opportunity.
Awesome, man. Well, we are certainly looking forward to it. We're all Ben might come. Who knows?
Thinking about it.
He's looking
It's
into
gonna
it.
be fantastic.
We're piling in a van.
You don't want to go to lovely Lincoln? It's like the most beautiful city in the entire world.
Oh,
I've
man.
been to Lincoln a couple times, and I would not deem it the most beautiful city in the world. But there might be reasons that I would want to go to Lincoln. So I'm looking into flights because, I was quite disappointed that I was not going to see this weekend, and who knows when it's ever going to happen. Now, I would have to change my schedule around, but I'm definitely thinking about doing it because it's going to be epic.
A lot of sarcasm there with it being the most beautiful city in the world.
Yeah, shots fired at Lincoln, Nebraska. Jeez. Okay. Well,
No,
you
I'm
guys
just
got to
kidding.
come to Churchville.
I was hoping it was going to be in Austin. I think Austin's it's been pretty cool the couple times I've been down there. But again, doing what we got to do to make this match happen. Super excited that we're going to be able to do it. Got to hope for me, one more negative test. I'm ready to rock and roll, travel, and compete on Wednesday. Looking forward to that.
Here we go.
We're looking forward to it as well. Thank you so much, David. Thanks to Ben. Thanks so much to you guys for tuning in. Tonight, 7 o'clock, we got a monster card headlined by Adeline Gray, Tamara Mensah-Stock, a pair of world champions, battling out, headlining the card. And Wednesday, David Taylor versus Jordan Burroughs. We're working on the card as we speak. So for Ben Askren, David Taylor, I'm Christian Piles. Thanks so much. See you tonight.
Peace. All right. I felt like we talked for a while. I don't even
It was
know
great.
how long.
It's 12:48.
Oh, that's it?
That was awesome.
I don't know why it felt like longer.
I don't know if David, you're still there, but thanks, man.
Yeah, thank
that
you,
was
David.
great.
That was great. I actually am coming around to the push-out point in folk style.
Oh, absolutely. It's got to happen.
I'm not that far yet, but I'm coming around to it. Oh, because you couldn't hear the other part.
Yeah, I know. It's tough with, I was thinking about that.